Hi folks, not sure if you can see me very clearly. It seems to be a very dark image. But I've watched heaps of YouTube sorry, heaps of YouTube clips on how to spot a fake Stratocaster. Now, I'll give you a couple of tips because the one I'm going to show you I bought about 3 years ago. Now, I bought this from Trade Tang in China, and I knew when buying it that it was a fake. I've had a couple of Fender Strats in the past, and this one cost me 190 Sing dollars, which is about, maybe about 145, 150 US dollars. And the delivery to Singapore didn't cost very much. Now, there's no strings in this guitar for the simple reason that I've had to fix the neck and I had to take the strings out. But that's actually one of the issues with these Chinese-made guitars. So I don't know if you can see it properly, but I'll try and give you a decent angle of the neck. You probably can't see it very well, but the reason I'm not actually playing this is the fact that the neck is quite severely bent. So it's rotated, not back to front, where you can adjust it with a truss rod, but the bottom of the neck is turned inwards. So maybe that's a better angle if I just hold it like that. So the neck comes in this way. Now, when I first bought the guitar, it was virtually unplayable because it was so badly set up. Now, you can get genuine Fenders that are badly set up when you first buy them, so that wasn't a real problem. I fiddled around with it, I'd reset the hardware and so forth. But let me show you exactly how to pick a fake. Now, the first thing I noticed with the tuners, they didn't look too bad, but I've never seen, I'll hold that up a bit closer. I've never seen tuners on a Fender that looked exactly like this. So after looking up all sorts of different copies of photos of real Fenders on the net, I realised, okay, these are not the real Fender, despite the fact that's what's got written on the back. Now, I don't know again if you can see it, but they're not straight. None of these have been installed perfectly straight. So they're all pretty well dog-eared. Now, the effect of that is it makes the guitar a lot harder to keep in tune. If you look at the G string here, I don't know if you can see that one, but it is quite substantially bent that way. So it leans that way. And the ones at the top lean the other way. So whoever has assembled this has simply not lined them up properly. The other thing I noticed when you use the tuners, some of them, like this one, are really stiff. That one is really loose and it squeaks. So that one again squeaks a bit. That one's really loose and squeaks like a mouse. This one's incredibly tight. That one's really loose. So there's a lack of consistency. They're really pretty crappy tuners. Couple of other things, very simple. Check out the nut. It's a very thin, in terms of, look at the width of my finger, it's a very, very thin nut. A real Fender will have a bigger nut than that. And they cut them too deeply. So when you look at them, I don't have very long fingernails, but you can put your fingernail virtually the whole way down into it. So rather than it being a fairly solid nut, you get a fairly flimsy plastic nut, and they're cut far too deeply. Now, with the frets, they look actually okay. The genuine Fenders that I've had, the frets are not quite as pointy. Strat frets are generally more rounded off on the top. These ones are actually quite pointy. They're a little bit more like, say, I'll give an example. I've got an Ibanez Artist semi-acoustic, which I've personally owned for more than 35 years, which has got very, very pointy frets. It's a really nice guitar, but I'll worry about that another time. The neck itself, the finish on it when I got it wasn't so bad, but it's going quite dull very, very quickly. This guitar is probably not even 3 years old yet, so it's not that old. But you can see it's starting to rapidly discolor. Okay, and it started discoloring almost the day I bought it. So you can see probably where sweat's built up on it, where I've been playing it. It's looking a bit strange. Now, It's not such a big problem with the playability. It's just another example of it not being for real. Now, when I first looked at the body actually looks okay. The finish on it is not as good as you'd expect. You can see a lot of file marks and sanding marks below the surface of the paint. Now, as it's got older, it's become apparent that this is not really a solid body guitar. It's actually a bunch of pieces of wood that have been glued together. Now again, probably impossible for you to see, but if I just turn it like this, you might notice that there are distinct lines in the body. There's one along here. The most obvious one, probably if I turn it upside down, you might see it a bit easier. I don't know if you can see it, but it's a series of pieces of wood that have been stuck together. And there's one right there. So that is one chunk of wood. And where's the other one? Okay, there's one right along there, and there's a couple of little marks that have been, I think, probably filled in. So it's actually made out of at least 3 chunks of wood, and possibly even 4. I've given this guitar a really good clean-up, but it's just even handling it today, it's looking a bit of a mess. Now, the scratch plate is bubbling. Now again, you can say, okay, you can buy a replacement scratch plate for not very much, but again, it's a quality issue. Now, I'll turn it over and show you a couple of other things. I've never seen on a real Fender what the plastic cover here, where you put the strings in, that looks like this. It feels very hard and coarse, and it's very flimsy little piece of plastic. Real Fenders tend to be smoother, and I've never seen one with that shape holes in it to put the strings in. Now, putting the strings in this was not easy. Actually getting the old strings out, you really need to get a pair of pliers out and pull them out, because the bridge is not really very well made. Unlike on some brands of guitar, the strings basically come through. The bridge is just a one piece. You don't have a separate piece here in the bridge. The metal here is not particularly wonderful quality. Now, you might also note that the pickups are at different levels, and they're loose and they wobble around. So I've actually taken this one out and put it back a few times and played around with it. There's not a lot I can do about it. So what you have is a piece of wood that's actually not very good quality. When I first got it, the thing I noticed, having had a real Strat before, is it's a lot lighter. And when you wear it with a Strat, it doesn't feel particularly balanced. Now again, I bought this fairly cheaply just to play around with a little plastic, little practice amp. So it didn't worry me, the fact that it's not a real Fender. I didn't really expect, it says that, but I didn't really expect it for a real Fender for the amount of money paid. A couple of things on the back. The Fenders that I've had previously, the serial number, just turn it around, you might see it better. This serial number has never been in that position. Now, maybe real Fenders, if you looked at Fenders made over a series of time, you'll find them in different positions. But the real Fenders that I've had, the actual numbering has been along here, not where this one is here. I actually researched the number, and this number has been copied from a Mexican-made Fender Strat. So the serial number on the back is not from an American guitar in the first place. It's a very quick way of verifying it. And it says in all the bits of material that came with it, and including what's on the back there, if you can see the metal plate, it says Fender California Corona. So it is definitely not a Fender California Corona. Okay, so they haven't even been bothered to copy the right number. I've just lost the picture, so sorry about that. Now, in terms of its playability, it's actually not that bad. The electrics on it, if you take the electrics off, the wiring doesn't look like a real Fender. It tends to be a bit flimsy. And the electrics, some are stiff and some are loose. Now that one seems to be really stiff and that one's really loose. So what I'm saying is you get this inconsistency, just a lack of tolerances in quality control that you shouldn't expect to get in a Fender. Now, I'm not too sure what I'm going to do with this guitar because it's reached a point now. I've been working out what I can try and do to straighten the neck. Now, again, it's not a problem with the truss rod. I've adjusted the truss rod a couple of times, particularly when I first got it, because it just buzzed so much that it was totally unplayable. So I adjusted the bridge and I adjusted the neck using the truss rod, and I made it playable. So I have to say I've had some fun with it over the last 3 years. However, if you do buy one, people are saying, oh, well, look, you know, it's 80% as good as the real one. I can guarantee you, if I had bought a brand new Fender and maybe paid, I think in the country I'm living in Singapore, they're probably about $4,000 or $5,000 here for an American standard. And if you want one that's custom, you'd probably, in Singapore, if you could even buy one, it would probably be a multiple of that. So you've got to be realistic. The difference is if you buy one that's a genuine Fender, it is always going to be worth something. Now, the Ibanez Artist semi-acoustic I've got would probably, there's only a very small number of them made, and is in perfect condition now after 35 years. This, after 3 years, has reached the point where it's virtually junk. So that's my thought. If you want to buy a cheap guitar that might look impressive to novices, and you think you can have some fun with and big deal with it, there's a few problems with it, we'll try and fix it, then it's okay. If you think you're buying a guitar that is, one, going to last, and secondly, going to maintain its playability for a long period of time, you're wasting your money and your time. Okay.